Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how to make this lovely little card, and I'm going to show you a quick and easy way for coloring this pretty image. I am the guest designer over at Tombows for the month of October, and I'm going to be using their dual brush pens. So if you are new to my channel, if you're just checking this out over on the Tombows blog or website, I invite you to click the little button and check out my channel because I have lots of card making tutorials for you, many of them using these lovely Tombows products. I'm going to be using a few of the brushes in here, the brush markers in here. They're super juicy and they're really fun, and I'm going to show you also this blending kit that comes with this laminated panel for you to mix your colors on, and I have some other techniques for that too, a mister bottle, and also a blending pen. So if you have a bunch of markers and you're having a hard time working with them, you might want to pick up this kit because it's very, very useful no matter what water-based marker you're using, but especially with the Tombows because they're super juicy. So the first thing we're going to do is grab a rubber stamp, and this is by Rubbernecker, and a piece of hot press watercolor paper, or you can use a cardstock that you like for using watercolor markers on. Cardstock's going to be fine because we're going to be doing our blending on the palette there. And you want to use a waterproof ink, and I have Ranger Archival in black. You could use whatever color you prefer. Since this is such a graphic, bold image, I really wanted to make it stand out, so I am using black. Always make sure your stamp is well inked before you bring it to your paper. And I get a lot of people asking me about this. These curved mounts, these are called Rock-a-Blocks, and they're by Crafter's Companion. They're really good for getting a nice, even stamped image. So there, nice and perfect. So while this dries, what I'm going to do is show you this little blending card, and I'm going to choose the colors I'm going to use. I'm going to be using this green and this yellow. This is the Muted set by Tombows. I'm going to use the red and the blue and also the gray in here. Alright, so I've got those colors right there ready to go. And then I'm going to scribble a little bit out on my palette of these colors so I have some color to work from. So you make yourself basically like a little watercolor palette. Now if you don't have this and you have the markers, go ahead and use a white ceramic tile or a piece of plastic packaging. That'll be totally fine. But if you're on the lookout for a blending pen, Tombows one is really nice. I was really happy to get this to try because I love using a blender pen, and I'd had a hard time finding any that you didn't have to special order from a company, like right in regular stores, and Tombows markers are available in most stores, so that was really nice to be able to try that out and find that. Okay, so this should be pretty well dry by now, and what I'm first going to do is take my red pen, and the color of this is, does it say, 837, and I am just going to go in and I am going to add some details that I want to keep nice and dark. Now I could go in with a bullet tip. In fact, that's the brush tip. You get a really nice, substantial, juicy tip there. And this is the fine tip. It's a bullet tip, so that will also work really well. I think that it's going to take me too long to color that with a bullet tip, so I'm going to go back to the brush tip. But you can see you get quite a bit of control there. You might enjoy that if you like to color really fine things, or if you want to do some journaling. It might be a little bold for scrapbook journaling, but not for titles. If you're doing some like display lettering, I think it would be really nice. I think I kind of want to go in the areas where the flowers are overlapping and add some bold detail there, or maybe just every little segment. I know I'm kind of trying to balance out the darker areas just so that I don't end up with one side of the flower being heavier than the other, if that makes any sense. I want to try to balance out the weight of where I'm putting the darker areas, and maybe just do these overlapping areas. I'm not spending a ton of time here, so you know, you can take as much or as little time as you want to with this. And I've also had probably too much coffee today, so hopefully I am not completely shaking and jittery. Okay, so now I've got my little palette there, and what I'm going to do is take a clear blender. And this is a nice clean one, so I don't have to scribble it off. And that's how you clean them, by the way. And I'm going to load up the tip of my brush. Now, I want to turn my paper so that the tip of my brush is kind of touching the edge. And look at this. As I blend it down, I get that beautiful look that's almost like when you're coloring with alcohol markers. But you would need a couple shades, or you would need to have a lot of coloring experience to get that with an alcohol marker. So that's another thing I like about the water-based markers. You don't have to have a huge supply, and you can get some really nice effects very easily. There's no smell, and just unlimited supplies. I like to take my supplies to friends' houses and to crops, and I travel light. I don't like to carry a bunch of stuff, so I choose to use media like this that I can bring around. Now I can drag some of that color out. See, I can go over it and drag it out. So that's another way you can use it. That's predominantly going to work on watercolor paper. The dragging the color around that you've laid down on the paper is not going to work as well with a regular cardstock because there isn't the sizing in the paper that's going to keep the color to the top. So look, you were able to get many shades of this lovely rose just by using the blending palette and a blender pen. Now this blender pen does have a bullet tip on the other end if you wanted to get into a tighter spot. I really like the feel and the flexibility of the brush end, so that's what I'm going to be using. But, you know, feel free to experiment. Look at that. It's so pretty and so easy. Anybody can do this. You could have this little package of pens and this little blender pen, you know, on your coffee table and, you know, color a few things while you're watching TV in the evening. Or while you're, you know, keeping your husband company while he's watching football. Or keeping your wife company while she's watching football. I've been leaving a set of watercolors upstairs for my husband to use whenever he feels inspired. It's so nice when you can get your spouse interested in the hobbies that you enjoy. I want to put a little bit more color out here because I feel like I want the edges a little bit richer. Pick that right up. Right into the edge there. So you can layer and blend and get just the right color. So again, watercolor paper is going to work a little better for this because it's more resilient. But use what you have and see how it works before you go and buy new. It's important to see what the materials you already have will do. I know we don't have unlimited crafting budgets. These are a good investment though. I have to tell you a little story about, to clean your brush, you scribble it out. My first Tombow markers came from a yard sale. I had gone to this woman at this huge stamping yard sale. She used to own a store. You can mix your colors on your palette too, so you don't have to have every color. And she was retiring, and her husband and her were gonna travel in an RV, and they needed to downsize. I just think I stuck my hand in ink. And so she was selling off all of her stamps. And she had these markers for 10 cents a piece. There were all these Tombow markers. And I'm like, well, I don't have very many markers. I'm going to try a bunch. And I'm telling you what, those were used. I think she used them in classes. She closed her store 10 years ago, so they were at least 10 years old. And I'm telling you what, those things were still juicy. And they worked beautifully, and the tips weren't frayed. And so I thought, you know what, if this is how good the used 10-year-old Tombow markers are, then I think they've got to be pretty fantastic when they're brand new. So that was my first introduction, and so then after that, whenever I'd see them on sale at a craft store, I would grab a package. All right, so now I want to, I think I want to add a little bit of, I don't want black, it's going to be too harsh, but I have this kind of gray. It is number N35, and I just want to add a little bit of that gray right around the center. You can't really see inside the centers because you're kind of looking underneath these poppies. I'll show you the stamp set here. They're really pretty, and they actually are a layering stamp that you can stamp the different layers on, but I thought that the graphic line work was so stunning that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep it really, I really wanted to showcase how pretty that was. So I'm just going to add a little dark there. Sometimes you just feel that you need a little something. All right, so now I'm going to, I already scribbled out some of this ink, but it kind of beat it up and you can't really tell, so I'll scribble it a little bit more there. And I'm going to use my blender pen. Make sure I got all the extra off. And then I'm going to do a technique where I kind of add a halo or a rouging or a shadow around. So on the tip of this, I'm really going to load it up with that blue. And this might be a little scary after you spent the time coloring this, but I'm going to start actually below here because I know I'm going to trim that off. And I'm using quite a bit of the edge of my marker here, and I am adding the color so that it just kind of fades out, so it's a very soft outline. Now if you don't like this, you don't have to do it, but I think it just kind of gives it a neat effect. You might want to practice it on something else first if you're unsure whether you like this technique or not. I'm kind of brave. I like to push the envelope, and I like to try it. I maybe wouldn't try this if I was making the card like 10 minutes before I had to leave for a birthday party and this card was going to the birthday guest, but you know, if you have time to practice, I'm definitely one to just try it on my card, because heck, it's only a piece of paper, and you know what? If you ruin it, work on the back side or get a fresh piece. You know, don't let that stop you. Paper's fairly inexpensive. This is 90-pound hot press watercolor paper. I get a pad of like 75 sheets for about $20, and their big sheets are like 11 by 14. And this will work on the cardstock too, because it's the juiciness of the pen, so you get the color on the tip, and I'm pressing the whole edge of the pen down so the color can kind of travel along that wet edge, and that's why it's giving me that nice faded look. And that would be something that you would see people do with the alcohol markers, but it might be a little more tricky to do that way. So this is just a really easy way. And I think because alcohol markers have been so popular, and heck, I love them too, that people kind of forget that there's all these great techniques that you can do with these, and these actually have been around longer for arts and crafts applications. They were kind of the standard for stampers. On the back of the blending card, they actually have a swatch of all the different colors available if you wanted to keep track. I don't have nearly all the colors that are available, but since I can blend them like this, I don't feel like I need every single color. Not that I wouldn't want every single color, but I certainly don't need every single color. Alright, I hope this tutorial isn't too long and dull for you, but I wanted to show you the full technique here. I'm just going around all these little stems on either side. I think also the more you use a pen, the more flexible it becomes and the easier it is. As long as the tips don't fray, and I haven't had the problem with any of my Tombow tips fraying. So if you've used these and you've ever had a problem, maybe you have a faulty pen. I always advise contacting the manufacturer if you ever feel like your product is not behaving the way it should, because you could be using it wrong, you could have a bad product, or you know, maybe you just need a little more education on the subject, or maybe the product's junk, but you know, I always recommend calling the manufacturer if you have a problem, just because they could usually put you to rights. It might be something simple that you're just not doing, or it could be something that's not your fault at all. In my experience, it's usually my own user error, I find. Alright, can't be bothered to read any instructions. Okay. Let's just color that in there. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna let that dry for a second, and then I'm gonna trim it out. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I am going to prepare my card base. And, oh, I also want to stamp a little sentiment, and this is from that same stamp set. Also using the archival ink, because I'm going to want to add a little bit of marker to this as well. Look at it, make sure it's shiny. That's how you can tell you're well inked. Stamp it and just give it a second, because this is a flat block. Make sure the ink transfers. There we go. And I'm just going to set that aside to dry along with my other piece there. Alright, hopefully my hands aren't too inky, because I don't want to get ink on my lovely pristine white cardstock. Alright, I want to use a little of this black and white baker's twine. This is from Paper Mart. There we go. Where is my scissors? Good grief. Did I seriously lose my scissors? Yes, I did. I'll have to use my backup scissors that are like currently sticky with something. Wrap it around a couple times. Actually, you know what? I do need to trim that before I can do that. Yes, I do. Well, let me grab a few buttons while I'm waiting for that to dry. That's probably dry by now anyway. I keep a baby spoon in my button jar. That helps me fetch those buttons, those pesky little guys. I'm just gonna grab out a few, and then I'll decide what I want to use. That'll work. Whoops! Oh, that's the one I want right there. That's the specific button that I must use. There we go. We got some choices now. Ah, gonna fire. All right, here's my little trimmer. We're gonna trim this up. I'm out of sorts. I'm out of order. I'm doing things out of order. Oh my! Any of you folks that are used to my channel are used to that. I just pity you, the new Tombow people that are like, oh my word, they seriously got this clown to be the guest designer. They scraping the bottom of the barrel. Was everybody else booked? All right, there we go. There, I like that. All right, so we're gonna kind of rouge the edges here. And this is very easy to do, and I'm gonna use my very fancy tool. This is a makeup wedge folded in half and glued into a bottle cap, folks. Fancy. So what I'm gonna do is use my little blending palette here. And I've already got some blue. Ooh, I'm gonna get my twine in that. I don't wanna do that. I'm gonna pick up that ink right off my palette with my little spongy tool. And I am just going to kind of rouge the edges with this. I think that those makeup sponges, the little makeup wedges, I think they're very much like the cut and dry foam material that the other blenders on the market are made with. So, and you see, they give you such a lovely little edge. If you run dry, just go ahead and scribble out some more. And I made one of these fancy tools for every color in my stash. I just you know, made one in each color, so then I would have that. And I also want to ink the edges while I'm at it with my black ink pad, just to kind of frame it. And oh, I got it on my fingers. Oh, big shocker. Yes, if I make a card without a fingerprint on it somewhere, it is it's quite astounding. All right, now we've got this. And, whoops, first we need this. I'm going to tie on my baker's twine. Actually, you know what? I lie! Use some of this Tombow Extreme adhesive. That's just extreme, you know. It should be able to handle this, I hope. Oops. And I'm out of order again. I'm out of sorts and out of order. Always flick it when you use this, because otherwise you'll get glue boogers. Nobody wants glue boogers. There we go. Wrap that around. Will that meet to the adhesive? Oh, just barely. Now I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of this. Did I do that? What did I do? Didn't. What? What's going on? I think I'm running out of adhesive. I like this little guy. I think I've used him so much I'm just about out of glue. Oh my goodness. Okay, and then I'm going to, let me get this out of the way. You can't even see what I'm doing here. There we go. We're against gray. We can see that. Just gonna center that up there. And let's get that little card that I stamped, and we will ink the edges. Why don't we do some green? All right, got my little green sponge. I'm gonna pick up those colors that I mixed. See, these are the colors I already used to color my card, so they're gonna match, which is nice. I mean, no thinking. See, you're not using a zillion colors of marker, so you don't have to worry if you have the matching ones or not. And I need some squares. Some little foam squares here on the back. And we will stick this down, and we'll embellish with our buttons. Easy as pie. This was a very quick and easy card. You can use it for a birthday. This is just a friendship one, but you could use it for a birthday. I'm gonna glue on. I like the transparent button there, and I'm just using hot glue. But be careful, because buttons are kind of small, and I tend to burn myself quite frequently. But I like to live on the edge, so that's fine for me. But I advise you, especially after I've had like a couple cups of coffee and I'm like burning myself with a glue gun. Good times. Maybe I could just pick up a little bit of glue right off that little glue ball that's hanging off there. Oh, now I'm making a mess. Oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? Look at that, I'm making a mess. Like, scrape off that glue. It's very hot, by the way. Yep, there we go. Now I got glue boogers and ink all over my fingers. And tempting fate on this tiny little button with my hot glue gun. But look at that. I did not burn my hands off. Yay me. All right, so what do you think of that? I think that's pretty cute. Now, say you have some leftover ink on your palette, which is, I did pretty good, but you know, okay, look at that, I have leftover ink. Oh, poor me. So if this happens to you and you're done your project and you have all this leftover ink, what you can do is simply spritz it with your little mister that comes in the blending kit, because that's why you have that. This comes with it, so you'd have both of these things if this was your scenario. Then you can take a tag, you can press it in it, and you can make yourself a little custom tag that you can use for you know, the gift that's going to go with your card if it's a birthday card. See, pretty. It's pretty. You don't have to waste any ink. You can, you know, do that until your ink runs dry. Now here are two that I already did, just to share with you. This one I stamped over the poppies again and colored a little bit on there. This was very absorbent, so it kind of really stuck in there and was really dark. And this was just a pastel one that I did. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I would appreciate a thumbs up and click that subscribe button because I'd love to have you back for more crafty goodness. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to Tombow for picking me for the October designer, and as always, happy crafting!